Hello, hello. Welcome to the Sober Butterfly podcast. Today, we are joined with a very special guest. We have Tommie Runz here at the Sober Butterfly. Tommie is a sober endurance athlete. He's a father, podcaster, and community builder. And I am wondering from you, Tommie, first of all, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm doing good, doing good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat.
I'm so excited to chat. Everyone is like, this guy is known for running, but then you also recently celebrated 9 years of
Mm,
sobriety, which is so incredible. Snaps to you all around.
thank
I
you,
cannot
thank
wait
you.
to hear more about your story and your journey. But when I was like introducing you, Tommy, just now, okay, sober endurance athlete,
Mm.
father, podcast host, community builder. I'm curious to learn from you, Tommy, which part of that identity feels most alive to you right now?
I think all of them. I think a lot of times that for me and like maybe for all of us, we have to maybe take a moment and step back a bit to realize. I mean, we can do all those things as long as you are living like with intention, And I think when I'm not realizing or when I'm very focused on one or I don't feel attached to one of those things, it's because my mind or something is somewhere else and I'm for me it's because like maybe I'm procrastinating on something or I have something kind of
Yeah.
like looming that makes me kind of get a little squirrely and then I'll start thinking about, maybe I'm not this or maybe I'm not that, but then I have to like kind of realign or make sure that I'm like moving with intention in all those areas because they're all very important to me.
I love that.
Sobriety first though. I've
Mm.
always like said that like from the beginning of my journey that sobriety is number one over everything, and then my kids, and then everything else after that. So as long as I think that first pillar that is there and I'm aligned with that, I think everything else will be good.
I feel the same. I feel like sobriety has allowed me to express these multiple dimensions to myself because
Yeah.
I also don't feel like I can necessarily just be tethered to one identity.
Yeah.
And so sobriety being at the core of that has allowed me to really embrace all parts of myself. But
Hmm.
without the sobriety piece, yeah, which
Yeah.
I would love to get into if you don't mind sharing, because as mentioned, seriously, kudos to you. 9 years is a big deal. And I personally don't take sobriety for granted. And I know that you can't always quantify it. Like, yes, you have 9 years, but like, I'm sure the quality of your relationships in your life has changed drastically throughout the course of this time. So, my question for you, Tommie, is like, can you kind of walk us back 9 years ago and talk to us about what life looked like for you so that we can understand like where you were to understand where you currently are today?
Okay, so yeah, like 9 years ago, I was at like the end of the road or the end of my rope necessarily because I think the road could was probably went a little farther,
That's fair.
but I was at the end of my rope and to the point where it was like there was no ultimatum given to me or like any
Mhm.
issues or like threat of jail or whatever. I didn't
Yeah.
get any like any trouble with the law, but it was really just more of like I felt like crap. Like I literally had like all these signs and like the check engine light was all the lights were on in the car. Like it was like something's wrong, something doesn't feel
Yeah.
right like every day. But then I also was just drinking every single day and all day. And I had no control, no thought of nothing positive was really like swirling in my head. Life was going well though. I mean, I had a good job, I was building my career, the whole functional alcoholic thing, which I think is probably one of the most dangerous like terms that there can be
Right.
because you are functioning and it's like, well, if this is working, then you start giving credit to the alcohol in
Yeah.
a way that makes it so like you can't even imagine yourself like without it. So I was just at this point where I was just sick of everything, sick of me, and I had the opportunity to like I kind of say tell the truth like 3 times, and I did that, and it led me to a room in AA where I walked in and I thought that you know it was like a room full of white folks that were middle aged and older. And I'm like, this
Mhm.
isn't gonna be it, but I told this therapist I'd go, so whatever, I'm here. But then I heard all these people tell their truth that mirrored mine in a way that I didn't think was possible, considering the crowd or the group of people. And that's when I knew I was like at home, and that's where I knew like there's a future for me here.
Mhm.
And so that was like the day that I officially was like, I'm gonna go. I can do this. Like I'm gonna try, you know. But then that road was like it was rough in the beginning because it was like I was so concerned with 10 years or 9 years or a year, you know, or a
Yeah.
month or 6 months. But it was like somebody just said like I was worried about something that was coming up in 3 months, and I was only like sober for 2 weeks, and I'm like I got this work thing. That's what
Yep.
they do is they drink, and I'm known for drinking, you know. So like I don't know what I'm gonna do. He's like, "You talking about in March? This is January. Like, are you all right? Like, just relax. Just go to sleep today sober and
Nadine.
wake up, you know, and then wake up in tomorrow and try to go to sleep tomorrow night sober." And I'm like, okay. And that changed my life. So I was at a rough spot.
Mhm.
You know, I just didn't like anything. You know, I didn't like me. Everything was just so grim. It felt like, and it was just kind of like if I go down here this road any farther, I don't know what's at the end of it. You know, and I was scared and all that. But I could go into like the three truths if you want. I just didn't want it to like
Yeah,
get you in
no,
this.
no, this is so good that I do wanna get to the 3 truths because I'm curious to hear what
Mm,
those 3 truths were for you
yeah.
and if they are still true for you today, but I just wanna connect real quick because I feel like I can resonate with parts of your story that I heard just now, which is this
Mm,
idea of, like, not quite reaching a rock bottom because I do think I was towards the end of my rope as well, but, like, I could have plummeted a lot further if I really thought about
mm,
it, and at the same time, it's like, sometimes that's even more dangerous because to your point, when you're functioning and when you are drinking yourself into a stupor or,
mm.
like, not even a stu my tolerance was so high, like, but I was
Yeah,
drinking
yeah. I
I
was
was
never like wild. Yeah.
yeah, like, I was known
Uh,
for drinking too, and, like, don't get me wrong, I had moments where I was, like, very wild, but,
yeah.
like, that was, like, a part of my identity, like, I was tethered to this idea of, like,
Mm,
I'm a drinker, like, that's who I am, that's what people knew me for, but at the same time, I heard you say, like, you didn't like yourself, and I think that's when I woke up one day and realized, like, I didn't like my life, but it was more so, like, I didn't love myself, and that's why I
mm,
was treating myself in this way and, like, turning to the one substance that I knew probably wasn't good for me, but at the same
mm,
time, I felt like it was helping me.
mm.
And, like, that cycle is just, I think, so dangerous for people because if your life is not, quote, like, "on fire," if you're presenting a certain way, if
Yeah,
everyone, like, mirrors or resembles somewhat of your drinking, like, yeah, I like to drink,
yeah,
people knew that, but, like, even when I quit drinking and got sober, I think people were like, "Oh, for real, Nadine? Like, you're really not gonna drink?" Like,
yeah,
I don't think people saw me as an alcoholic, which we can talk about the archetype of what an alcoholic
yeah.
is or
I
like
can.
all day,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, so, like, we used to I mean, you s I'll talk about the 3 truths, but you said it's that rock bottom thing. I mean, that's also scary because it's like
Mhm.
everybody's rock bottom looks so much different, and some people's
Right.
rock bottom is unfortunately, like, death,
Permanent?
like
Permanent,
yeah,
right, death.
permanent, you know, or
Mhm.
something that happens that there is no coming back from, or you do something that hurts someone else that they can't come back from, you know?
Yeah.
So, that rock bottom thing and, like, looking like an alcoholic or being an alcoholic in, like, society's eyes, it looks like something that I wasn't yet, you know? My thought it was like you're just stumbling down the street and don't have anything together and lost everything
Brown paper
and
bag.
that like, that's it, like, you're all the
Yeah.
way, like, you're just or you're beating your kids or something like it's just something
Different.
so extreme. All those things happen, but, it's you're playing with fire if you think that, like, we all end that we all get a chance to get there because we all
Right.
don't get a chance to even get that low,
That's
you know?
true. That's very true.
So for my rock bottom was more so just, like because my dad passed when I was 8 years old, he was 39.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so and he was I mean, I don't like to call people alcoholics, but I mean, he was my grandfather and him were alcoholics for sure.
Mhm.
And so, like, I was getting to this point where I've just physically felt terrible for a very extended period of time. You know, like, I was 32 or 33 or whatever, like, taking, like, high blood pressure medicine while drinking and trying to, like, keep that under wraps because 'cause you're not supposed to do both of those. And it was
Mhm.
just, like, a really bad vibe, and it was just I was scared, I was looking at my kids like, I don't basically, I don't know, like, how long I'll be here for you guys, you know? I'd like to stay, but I don't know if I can't see myself being sober for 7 days, you know? I was trying
Right.
different moments, like dry January or something like that, or just anything, and I'd last, like, 2 days, 3 days,
Mhm.
maybe 1, sometimes. So, when it came down to the end, so I have to give a quick shout out to, like, my best friend, his name's Donovan. He definitely probably had, like, a drinking issue as well, but whenever I would be, like, kind of really low, I would say, like,
Mhm.
"Yeah, I need to stop drinking." He's like, "Yeah, let's do 2 weeks." Like, he would just jump in,
It's
and for
nice.
some reason, he was able to do it, but then, like, I'd be, like, 3 days in and be like, "Dang, I messed up," you know?
Right.
And so every time I did that, like, he would always make room for it, which is, like, actually, like, in hindsight, like, probably saved my life because the last time I tried was, like, 2017, January, like, January 1st. I'm like, "Let's do it." He's like, "Alright, bet." And then,
Yeah.
like, 4 days in, I, like, was drinking in the middle of the night at his house because there was still liquor in the house. I was, like, drinking at his house 2 in the morning, everybody was asleep, my kids were asleep. My wife at the time, she was asleep. It was just, like, a sad moment, 2 in the morning, you're just drinking just because there's
Right.
nobody else awake, it's not even fun, you're just drinking.
Mhm.
Um but then some days later, like, my mom texts me like moms do. She lives, like, in Savannah, so she texts me and she's like, "Hey, how's my son?" She did that, like, all the time. Like, she'd always say, "How's my son?" every now and then. And this time I said, "Not good." And that was, like, the
Mhm.
first, like, truth that I told.
Mm.
And I said, "Not good." And then she's like, "All right, well, you have insurance, so go talk to, like, employee assistance program, and because
Mhm.
they may be able to give you some pointers on who to go to, but then maybe even a couple free sessions." So,
Mhm.
turned out that I got 5 free sessions, but then in order to do so, the EAP, Employee Assistance Program, people call you, and they, like, screen you to see
Right.
what's going on and who we're gonna send you to. And they asked me all the questions, and then they asked me, like, "Do you drink?" I say, "Yes." And then well, I never lied about that, but then they're like, "How many do you drink a day?" Or how often, how much you drink a day? And
Right.
then normally I would say, like, "Oh, just like 2 or 3 of
Yeah.
whatever."
Whatever the
And
state
yeah,
is,
yeah, whatever,
that.
like, when will get you not arrested typically.
Right.
But I was like, that depends on what I was drinking. Say if it was beer, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 more, whatever. And then
Mhm.
if it was alcohol, 4, 5, 6, whatever, just until the night's over. And I drink in the morning, like, and I just told them the truth, and it felt freeing but embarrassing.
Right.
And then I finally went to the therapist that they got me to, which was a marriage counselor, because in my little spiel, I was trying to protect me still. So I'm like, "Yeah, my marriage sucks." You know what I mean? Like, just
Yeah.
saying whatever I could to, like, make sure it wasn't just my fault.
Right.
Obviously, I was the problem. So I walk in and she asked me about drinking again because I obviously wrote something, but she was a marriage counselor, but she actually was mainly a substance abuse counselor.
Oh, wow. That
So
worked out.
she asked me, well, I mean, I think they were like, "Okay, yeah,
They were like,
he's an
"Oh,"
alcoholic." Yeah.
they
Yeah,
they they were able to read through
we
the
got
lines.
some
Yeah.
we got somebody for you because 'cause you're talking about
Yeah.
you don't even know how much you drink and you drink all day. You need
Right.
somebody. So
Right.
she asked me, like, "How much do you drink?" And I told her the third truth, and that was, like, in person, looking at somebody and saying, like,
Mhm.
"I have no idea how to control this. I can't stop drinking?"
Mhm.
And so she said, "Hey, I have somebody that comes every week." This is Wednesday, the 11th of January. I didn't drink. I stopped drinking at, like, 10:50 the night before because I didn't wanna smell like alcohol.
Mm.
So the
Mhm.
11th was my first day not drinking, and then she's like, "This is Wednesday." She said, "Go to this AA meeting on Sunday, no pressure, but there's a guy
Yeah.
that goes, he's cool, you should go with him, he's, like, around your age." And I'm like, "All right, bet, I'll go." And then I purposely said, like, "Well, let's try to not drink from Wednesday to Sunday at least. Let's see what this is all about."
Right.
And that was, at the time, the easiest 4 days that I've ever gone not drinking. So it was, like, kinda
Wow.
weird in that sense, and I'm like, "Well, I don't this is going better than it normally does." And by
Mhm.
Sunday, I walked in that room and saw all these strange faces, and they told my story to me,
Wow.
about themselves. And then I
Wow.
was like, that was it. So I always remember, like, the feeling of telling the truth those few times that I had never done before that point,
Yeah.
honestly. And
That's
that
beautiful.
saved my life. Yeah.
I'm so happy that you found I don't know if it was courage per se, but there's a sense of relief for sure when you
Yeah.
release what you've been holding onto for so long. Like,
Yeah.
I felt like I had this dirty secret. Like, I wasn't ready to confront the idea that, like, I'm an alcoholic because of what we mentioned, right? Like,
Hmm.
I don't fit the standard of what that looks like. But I knew that something was wrong with me. And similar to what you mentioned, like I confided in a therapist
Mhm.
for the first time. I went to therapy also for a different reason. I went to therapy because I was obsessing over this guy. And immediately she was able to clock that, like, no, there's something else going on here.
Mhm.
When I'm self reporting to her, like, oh, yeah, I went out last night and like this happened. I have this bruise here, like all of the things. And like to your point, like I could not even quantify. Like I wasn't even
Mhm.
trying to lie, but like when people asked me how much I drank, like I didn't really know.
Yeah, I don't really
I
know.
like, I didn't know. I knew it was too much, but, like, I also thought I could handle it
Yeah.
because my life wasn't completely in shambles, but, yeah, I just feel like there's just so much relief when you release or you're able to start to release that shame. It doesn't come overnight, at least it didn't for me, but, like, the first time I was able to admit to someone that, yeah, like, "Okay, I do think I drink too much,"
Mhm.
what does that look like? How do I actually get help? Like, that
Yeah.
is when you are ready to actually accept the help, like, that's where I think the true transformation
Yeah.
begins. But it's the start of the journey. It's certainly not the end.
Yeah.
So can you kind of talk to us around what that looked like? Because when I got sober at 30. So
Mm.
my anniversary date is July 5th. You can imagine what my 4th of July weekend was
Oh,
like,
goodness.
2021.
Yeah, there's so many people whose sober date is January 1st, not because of dry January, but because they got, like, arrested on the 31st of December.
Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, for me, it's like I could never complete a dry January, like you mentioned, like, I
Yeah,
would
nah,
be successful with
nah.
that, so, like, there's no way. For me, it was just like, "Okay, yeah, this is really just not working." But long story short,
Yeah.
I wanna hear from you, like, because I'm hearing at this time, you're a father, you have a marriage, like, I got sober at 30, I'm a single girl who's just
Mhm.
broken, and I feel like I was able to kind of retreat inside of myself, like, I do believe that connection is integral, like, you found connection in the rooms with AA and hearing your
Mhm.
story through other people. I also like, we can talk about AA more in depth if you're open to that later. Me, it was like I needed to kind of like isolate. Maybe isolation is not the best word, but like isolation for preparation, I'll say, is something a mantra I used to recite often because people, places, things, another adage in
Mhm.
AA. Like I was so triggered by like my former life
Mhm.
and I needed to kind of like take a step back. I didn't at the time have the connection to anyone sober in real life, so that's why I chose to just, like, self
Mhm.
isolate and try and figure out my life with the help of a therapist, but I wanna hear from you, like, what was that process like, still having to show up as a father and a husband, and now you're starting to accept help and go to meetings and find your new identity or start this journey of getting sober. What was life like for you in those early moments?
It was a little tricky, at the time. I guess you could imagine, like, obviously, like, being a full blown like alcoholic, and really lying to yourself and just looking for any like thought of like just validation for yourself, or
Mhm.
validating the things that you do that don't make any sense to anyone, even
Mhm.
yourself, like the next day. That caused like a lot of issues in a relationship, especially some people that are really close to you that like have to actually deal with it. Luckily my kids didn't like really. They were at the time, they were 7 and 10.
Mhm.
I think there might have been like 9 and 6 at the time when I got sober. So they didn't really like see too much of it, or just kind of too young to maybe understand all that was going on. But
Right.
in the beginning, like I was kind of on my own, with that, with the sobriety part of it. It wasn't like a big family thing. Like, all right, let's help. Like, it kind of sucked at the time because she still drank, and I mean, I don't think she had a
Mhm.
problem, but she still drank, and I didn't ask her to stop drinking because I'm like, I could do it by myself. You know what I mean? And I
Right.
was kind of, bullish in that, but it was probably a good thing for me because, like, I had to make a decision, like, right away. It was a stubborn decision, it was a dangerous decision to not ask for things to be removed from the house. It was like,
Yeah.
that's kinda
Yeah.
silly looking back, but then at the same time, it made me, like, toughen up and go, like, "I don't need it. I don't want it. We already made this
Mhm.
decision." And it made me, like, keep checking that decision that I made because it was a
Right.
decision, to, like, to do this. So, like, every day I would have to, like, "This is your decision, like, we're good."
Right.
And then
Because
also,
yeah, we can't hide forever. We can't be
yeah,
insulated in a
like,
bubble like that.
and so, like, to add on to that, it was, like, 2 weeks into sobriety, I'm in a AA meeting, and I'm, like, talking about this trip that I have to go on, my first work trip sober, and, if you go to conferences for work, like, it's like
Mhm.
professional drinking rodeo. Like everybody's drinking. It's
Yeah.
everybody's got their business cards. Everybody's having a good time. It's like a good thing, at some point, that you can be at the bar. And I
Mhm.
was worried about it, and he told me just take one day at a time. It is what it is. But even to just 60 days, less than 60 days sober, I was like on a work trip in the thing, and it made me really like armor up, really like what I wanted to do with this. And I drank probably way too much Red Bull, that first time around before no shade to Red Bull, but like you should not be drinking like like 3 things of Red Bull on ice. But I
Yeah.
always just had something in my hand. But I also told everybody, like if somebody asked me for like, nope, I'm not drinking, I'm been sober for this many days.
Wow.
And
Cool.
and I said
So
it like in a way that I felt like wasn't like I can't or just like, hey, this is what I'm doing. And that's actually played out in my life a lot more too. Like when I started to run a year into being sober,
Mhm.
like I'm soon into it, I'm like, I want to qualify for the Boston Marathon or
Wow.
like, and I would say it out loud and I would say like, I want to break 3 hours. I want to do this. I want to do that. Like I'd say it on my Instagram and I would show the work that I was doing to get to, and I still do it.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes like sharing goals can add a lot of pressure, but some of us, you know, if you know yourself, and sometimes like that pressure is good. So if you tell people, and I told everybody around me, like, hey, I'm doing this now. I don't know how long, but that's what I'm doing right now. You know, when I have like advice for marathoners or people training for marathons, and this kind of basically the same thing for sobrieties, if you have a goal, like a big goal, which would be like staying sober, or
Mhm.
like saying you want to run your first sub 5 hour marathon or whatever it is,
Mhm.
y- doing some of these things that we do or try to do in silence is not only silly at times, but almost selfish.
Mhm.
Because the sooner that you can share your journey or the journey you want to go on with people that love you and people that care for you and people that have supported you when you had no goal, the sooner you tell those people that, the sooner they can make a decision to support that goal in whatever way that they can. And then you
Right.
also have a moment where if you tell somebody that, hey, I want to be this, and if they have an issue with that,
Right.
now you also know that they have an issue with where you're trying to go. And if
It's
you
a data
don't,
point. It's a
yeah,
great data point. Yeah.
yeah, 100%. So it's like invite people along the journey with you because it's like if you're just like trying to like tuck it and try to like act like you're drinking everywhere you go, that's fine for some folks. Or like you got like a thing where you just make it look like you're drinking. I just feel like as alcoholics and addicts, you hide and lie like so much
Yep.
constantly to yourself, to everybody else, to
Mhm.
doctors, to this, to that. To get sober, to then continue that, like, same energy in, like, a life that you really wanna be proud of is
Right.
counterintuitive.
And this is the power of, like, sharing truths, right?
Mhm,
Because I feel so lit up and excited by what you just shared because it's so similar, not identical, but similar to remnants of my journey and my story, which is,
mm,
yeah, I lived a lie. I was lying to myself. I was lying to other people around the
mm,
depth and the issue I had with alcohol and how much it was controlling me, even when I was able to, because I'm a highly competitive person. So even when I was trying to compete with myself and tell myself that, like, oh, you don't have a problem. So you're going to prove it to yourself by taking this
mhm,
mini hiatus, right? And then doing it, but the whole time white knuckling my way through it just so I can prove that I don't have a problem. Like that was
mm,
so exhausting. But then to your point, like when I actually decided that I was going to stop and I also like had these really lofty, ambitious goals around, okay, I'm going to make it to a year, but like that
mhm,
can sometimes feel counterproductive as well because it's like now I'm afraid that I'm going to fail.
mm,
So self-sabotaging in ways. But long
yeah,
story short, once I decided that I was serious this time, because that's another thing, like I had tried before and failed. Once I really decided I was serious, I think telling people allowed me to actually hold myself accountable in some ways,
mhm,
and
yeah,
then
yeah,
had mentioned, like, it provided data, but I was so sensitive in the beginning of my sobriety. I don't know how you feel, like, when I did tell people, because I was like you, I was telling people, like, "No, I'm not drinking." I didn't have, like, a definite period of time in mind, like, I didn't actually think I'd be sober for the rest of my life, but I was just like, "No, I'm for real done this time, guys." And for me, it was almost like when I said it, I felt better in saying it, but at the same time, I held some resentments, some, like, petty resentments against people because I didn't know. how I wanted them to show up for me, but anyone that wasn't, like, super supportive out the gate, I was,
Mhm.
like, internally angry. Like, "Oh,
Mhm.
like, you're not really my friend," and I think that's, like, a misnomer or misconception where it's like they say people lose friends in early sobriety. I don't personally believe you lose friends. I think, like, we release people sometimes that don't need to be in this season of life with us, especially if they're not supporting us, but I also feel like I didn't know how to communicate properly in the sense that, like, how I need people to show up for me,
Mhm.
and therefore, it's like, no, it's one thing if someone's encouraging you to drink, like, that's and
Yeah.
you're trying not to, but, like, I think other things so it's just, like, me being so sensitive in this moment as I was trying to emerge into this new version of self, it's like, anyone that didn't invite me to places or didn't, treat me in the same way I
Mhm.
felt a way towards, and, like, I feel like that's a personal not regret 'cause have no regrets about how I have handled things because it's gotten me to this place, but I do tell people, like, if I could do things maybe differently, I would have explained to other people that, like, I don't need you per se to do anything for me except for just be there for me, and
Yeah.
I was as receptive to allowing people to show up for me in the way that I needed, but I do agree, like, transparency is key because other people are
Yeah.
suffering in silence, and that's what keeps us stuck for
Yeah.
so long.
I was gonna add, I've always been like a close, like a small group person, like a small
Mhm.
friend group, 3, 4 people max. Right
Oh
now
my
I
gosh,
got
may
like
I ask what's your sign? I'm sorry to
n
be that weird
you said with
weirdo.
the sign?
Yes, I got
Leo?
a Leo, okay, okay, cool. Okay, cool.
So,
What
like, there was, like, so it was a little easier for me. I mean, because they've known me for so long that,
yeah,
like, they didn't necessarily, like, meet me as a party person, and that's where they knew me for, and that's
oh,
why we were friends. And
right,
we were friends for so long before, like, we all started drinking together probably, you know
right,
what I mean? And they're like, "Okay, you're not drinking, oh, that's fine, I rocked with you before, so we're
right,
good." When you were 16, but somebody that's new, that's like, I'm like 3 days sober and I'm really hype about it and I wanna keep pushing, but I don't know how to talk to people about it. I mean, I really think that, like, those moments, I don't mind you saying, like, that you're like, I kinda, like, turned inward and, like, kinda isolated a bit, and then if you're isolating and then turning to, like, AA and establishing, like, different types of communication about your sobriety, I think that's a
mhm,
really safe way to go because sometimes, like, if you really, like, look at the people, not saying that you should stop talking to all these people, but if you look at a
mhm,
lot of people around you that, like, yo, when did I meet this person? Like, not
right,
that there's no shade to them, and they could be a good friend eventually, but, like, at this moment, like, do I need to share this with them?
right.
Like, because, like, if you're starting a business tomorrow and you have, like, this goal, I wanna be a $1,000,000 business in 2 years, you can't tell that to everybody.
Nope, you have to
'Cause
protect quantum field. I've been
right,
studying
you can tell, like, this one friend that you know. You'd shock me if this friend I'm talking about doesn't say, like, "Oh, dang, bet, what, you need help?" You
right,
gotta tell people sometimes you have to, like, as adults, like, you gotta realize, like, there's certain people that you can tell certain things,
right,
and then maybe later when you're different and you're ready, then you could tell those other people that may have those shaky answers. Thank God for you, but there's so many people that, like, those initial wrong s people that you tell, they don't mean anything by it maybe, but their reaction to it may not be like, "No, man, just take this drink." It could be just enough shakiness and not supportive enough to make you like, "See, this is why I didn't wanna stop drinking." And
right.
next thing you know, maybe a day later or that day or 2 days later, you drinking again or doing
It's
whatever
planted
again.
No, that's
Yeah,
so true. Having the discernment to know who to tell and when to tell that
yeah,
person is so integral because that key distinction is like the difference between someone who is unwavering in their
mm,
journey and they're on the straight path because they have
mm,
tunnel vision and they have the goal in mind versus like when you share with people who are not ready or maybe able to receive what you're messaging or
mhm.
sharing with them, I feel like sometimes it's not even about you. It's like a mirror. You sharing is like projecting in a way like their own fears and maybe around their
Yeah,
relationship to alcohol
yeah,
and so on and so forth. And especially if the common ground, because like unlike you, I will say this, like a lot of my relationships were the common ground was based in
mhm,
drinking.
yeah.
That's how
So
they met
it's
me.
so it's tough.
That's how
It's like, are you telling me you better than me? Like,
Yeah,
Or
like, yeah,
like,
you basically think you're better than me, or,
yeah,
like, they're
like,
scared, like, they're gonna lose you as a friend because, like, what else do we have in common? Like, what
yeah,
you know?
and then you got things like how many times have you told these sets of people that you were gonna do
And
2
they don't
weeks?
believe you, and they don't and because I wasn't serious because I'm hanging around these people who also are
Yeah,
not supporting me, and it's like, if you're in that
yeah,
ecosystem, it's easier to slip,
yeah.
and not that I think people are rooting for your failure, but it's like, I think it like
It's
I
not
said,
the
it
it's
confronts
not their
them
journey.
with a question. It's not their journey, first
It's
of
not
all.
their journey.
Not their
Like,
journey.
it's just not. And that's why it takes, like you said, that discernment to really go, okay, like
Yeah.
sometimes like, oh, maybe I can't trust any of my friends with this at this moment. Let
Right,
me get a little more or whatever, and then I'll tell the one friend that I think I could take a chance on.
right.
But you really had like, sometimes we do often selfishly, especially, addicts and alcoholics. We're selfish
Mhm.
people. We're selfish people. Like we're living selfish lives for a very long time.
Yeah.
So then we get into this thing like everybody's gonna be so happy for me. They're gonna support me. They're not gonna drink around me anymore.
Oh,
They're
please.
just gonna they're just gonna oh my gosh, we're all gonna be sober, like walking to the park. Like we somehow think everybody's gonna stop what they're doing and then support us.
Yep.
And if they don't, it shatters our little
That's
confidence that
already
we
fragile.
had. Yeah. So,
Mhm.
yeah, so I mean, I didn't wanna, like, poke at, like, the way I just fear, like, because 'cause I'm in a point too, like, in this, like, whole journey thing too, like, where, you gotta make sure, like, as you are trying to shift even, like, small shifts in energy to be a better person or to be a more productive person or to build something that you haven't seen before or run a race that you never thought you could or whatever, you have to start kinda, like, checking around you to see, like, okay, whose energy's pushing this way, who's pulling, who's
Mhm.
and it doesn't mean, like, okay, I'm gonna text this person and say, "Lose my number," but it may just be like, "Right now, I gotta be over
Yeah.
here." You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, all the people that we've seen successful at anything, they're not gonna have people around them that are doing the opposite of what they're doing. It's just not gonna happen. So in this case,
No.
it's tough to be a sober person and essentially, like, all the people around you are just still kinda in that other lane, and that's just a slippery slope. And even if you stay sober, it's not gonna be the healthiest sobriety journey?
It's not, and I think there's also a distinction around, like, sobriety in the sense that, okay, I don't drink versus in programs like AA, this
Mm,
idea of, like, growing along spiritual lines, like spiritual sobriety or,
mm,
like, realizing that, like, it's not even that I can't do it with alone or, like, a higher power, although I do believe that you need a strong purpose, a strong why, and a connection to something outside of yourself
mhm,
to personally stay the course, and I know that that can be controversial for people, but I also believe that when you are not fully in that new identity, like the key piece, like in the early stages of trying to figure out who you're becoming, like you do have to have discretion around, as we mentioned, who you share things with and discernment
mm,
around like your purpose and why you're doing this. And if it's going back to the selfish piece, being like alcoholics and addicts, like, yeah, selfishly, I want people to clap for me. I want my roses. So all of that I think plays a role.
yeah,
I Okay, butterflies, let me let you in on a little secret. Self care is so much more than just bubble baths. It's about finding what makes you feel your very best, inside and out. And that's why I've been obsessed with ClassPass for years. Whether I'm crushing a Pilates class, getting a fresh blowout, or treating myself to a relaxing facial, ClassPass lets me explore all kinds of fitness and wellness options. With just one membership, I can book workouts, beauty treatments, and so much more all in one app. I've been a member since 2016, and I've booked over 500 reservations. ClassPass makes it easy and fun to prioritize my health and happiness, all while staying on budget. And because I want you to feel just as amazing as I do, I've got an exclusive offer for my listeners. Sign up with my special link and you'll get a free trial and 20 bonus credits to use toward any classes or services you want to try. So, what are you waiting for? Take that first step toward feeling your best. Head to ClassPass to get started today. I'm curious to learn from you, Tommy. Going back to the three truths you shared. Truth number one, you shared with your mom, I'm not well.
Mm,
I'm not doing well.
mhm,
And that immediately makes me think of mental health, and so much of our emotional, mental health, and spiritual state can be aligned to obviously how we show up in the world.
mhm,
And I think so often people who drink or use substances in excess, it's about escapism sometimes, it's about numbing, it's about not necessarily doing the work around trying to get better and feel better, where it
right.
has prolonged positive impact as opposed to just like immediate, quick release. So, my question to you is looking at that truth, how are you doing? How has that changed for you 9 years ago to today? And how soon did you start to quote, maybe feel better? I'm not going to quote you, you didn't say that, but like, how soon did you start to feel better in your sobriety?
So I feel like that part, getting through those first like few steps, it felt like a shift in power for me, and it like created this very quick like momentum,
Mhm.
at least just internally, that just felt like it was like fueling me and charging me. So like in that moment, the not well part outside of physical,
Right,
because I
right.
was obviously trash. But outside of that, the I'm not okay, like, I'm not okay was more mental and more, like, spiritual, emotional, and
Yeah.
it was because I had no control or grasp on, like, how to own anything. It was just
Mm,
all random moments of, like, where's the next drink, you know?
mhm.
So I kinda felt better and, like, kind of almost immediately in that sense, and it felt like I was like, "Okay, I don't know what this looks like, but at least I know that I did the first steps, really."
Right.
And then when did I start feeling better and feeling, like, good about my sobriety? I feel like it was only, like, really only, like, a couple months in.
Mhm.
I don't know if I felt, like, clear. Like, I didn't feel I started to feel some type of clarity, like, I was like, "Oh, I'm so clear. I'm just I can see
Yeah,
everything clearly now," you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
You'd have no idea. If you're, like, a couple months sober, you're just like, "Just keep going, bro. You're good." But then I started to see, it probably was, like, maybe 2 months because I started to see myself in the mirror
Mhm.
differently than I maybe thought that I did. Like, I'm like, "Oh, I look crazy." Like, I don't like this at all.
Oh my
You know what
god.
I'm
Yeah.
saying? I'm like, "This is terrible." Like, like, "Why is she even still with me?" Like, type of vibe. So, like, I started going to the gym, like, right away, and then I was going to the gym 6, 7 days a week. 6, 7. I got
But
kids, I'm
the
sorry.
it's the addiction replacement they talk
Yeah,
about
yeah,
in a
yeah.
pop.
So, a positive way, right?
Yeah.
So, I was going to the gym and I was just like going 7 days a week, but I was just really trying to like reattach to like feeling physical and like in charge of myself. And then I actually got like pretty big,
Yep.
like, and then my
Mhm.
name was something else before on Instagram, and then I changed it to Tommy Guns, like on the
Ah,
play of
I
like
love
on the play,
that.
like the Tommy gun back in the day, Tommy
Mhm.
Buns from, from Belly.
Oh,
And then
the movie. Mhm.
because he was Tommy Buns or whatever.
Yeah.
But so I'm Tommy Guns on Instagram because like my arms are really big and I was like lifting all the time. I was in the gym all the time. And then eventually, like a year later, I started running and started getting more into that. And I changed it to Tommy Runs.
Yeah.
But I started feeling good in that, like that I pushed everything fast. Like I was like, okay, I don't feel good. I don't look good. Let's go all the way with everything. I
Yeah.
started eating better, pushing forward, using all that energy and all that. Like I say that, you know, I think we look at some of the things that are air quotes like wrong with us as
Mhm.
something that's wrong. But we don't ever look at the benefits or like the plus sides to like where the way we are. And if I can if
You're
I
pretty.
can drive
Mm.
across the country with red lights and alarms going off my car to tell me to stop, and I
Mhm.
could just keep going,
Yeah.
just like I did with alcohol. I looked past all the signs, all the things, everything that's telling me to stop. I chose that every day,
Right.
and I fought through it. I negotiated with myself. I drank this instead of this. I could keep going.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't care what nobody says, like that is a dumb strength. It's a strength.
It's a
It's like
superpower.
it's a superpower, but it's a dumb one if you're using it the dumbest way possible.
Yep.
But the same thing that had me able to do that, I look at that at these times when I decide to be in the gym or decide to be a runner or decide to be vegan, it's like, okay, all that wildness that like just let me just keep pushing and keep going no matter how I felt about it. I can do this in endurance running, I can do this in
Right.
lifting, I can do this at any moment. Cause there also will be no moment in running or any other thing that will be as low as the long low
Right.
that I was in for drinking.
Yeah.
So that's just like how I felt about it. And people do say like, "Oh, you swapped for another addiction." And I've listened to Rich Roll for years now, and his book and his podcast actually came at a really great time for me because I was just got vegan and been sober for a year, so it was like this really cool thing. I started running, and he talks about whether running or these endurance stuff is an addiction too, like a swap. But he's like, an addiction to him is something that you do repeatedly, uncontrollably, that has a negative consequence.
Right.
But the part for me is the negative consequence, but then also I didn't have a choice, and I just did, but and now like every time I step out the door to run or go to the gym or anything like that, or spend time with my kids or whatever else I've dedicated myself to, I have a choice and I continue to make that choice
Right.
every day, all day, you know? And to me, there's no addiction in that. Like I may really like it, but there's no point where I'm just like, I look up and all of a sudden I'm running. I, I put my shoes on, I
Ah,
made the decision.
that's so
Um,
fair. Yeah.
but, I think it's fun to say like, "Oh, yeah, just nah, do this," like, but we don't give ourselves enough credit for making the decision to change and then the choices that we have to make over and over and over again to not, like, let our alcoholic minds that would just have us wandering around doing nothing to make choices to do things the right way.
Yeah, I agree. And another like minor but significant difference between addictions like drinking and like when people try to say like working out because I'm a workout fanatic. For me, it's a part of my mental health. Like if I don't work out, I don't feel well. So like that's where people are like, that's dangerous. I'm like, no, that's me being proactive. I think for me, another key distinction is like this idea that when I was drinking, it was for a short-term ramification. Like it was an immediate hit of dopamine. I think I
Mm,
feel better. Versus when you run or when you move your body intentionally, that is you promoting serotonin. Like
yeah,
you're rewiring your circuits,
mhm,
right? Like
yeah.
this is promoting a healthy lifestyle. When did you fall in love with running, Tommy? Because I just think it's like so telling how many people that I meet in recovery spaces and in sobriety who have run a marathon, myself included. So, at
Yeah,
what point though did it become like, oh no, this is not just a hobby. This is not just something that I'm doing to like trade, going from the gym to
yeah.
now I'm going to be a runner. Like, when did you actually fall in love with running?
I don't really know. I feel like it was kind of like a gradual thing, but like I got invited to run a half marathon in July or something like that of 2018.
Mhm.
And then like so I started like running in like March or whatever, just like, okay, I'll do it, and I was like raising money for like his foundation that does really good work. And so I'm like, I'll do it. And then during that race, I just loved the concept and it felt very reminiscent of like walking into AA because it was so many people that didn't look like me, but we all were doing the
Mhm.
same thing. And we were all like suffered to get there. We all like suffered all the way through and we had the same goal,
Yeah.
start the race, finish the race.
Mhm.
It felt very like comparable. And I don't think people talk about how much like positive like comments and affirmation can do for somebody who's very new to like a new lifestyle.
Mhm.
Like 'cause a year or 2 or 3 into sobriety, like you're still very new
Mhm.
to like this because you were probably drinking way longer than you've been sober. I still haven't reached the time like I've been
On the other
sober.
side.
Yeah, I'm not on the other side of
Nope.
the sober thing. As I started running, it was so new to black folks too. Like, I mean, people that would follow me on like Facebook or whatever, like we didn't see a bunch of people like running around like, oh, you ran 10 miles. That's crazy. Like, so I was getting like comments that made me feel good. And it reminded me a little bit because I didn't want to be like, hey, I'm sober again, sober, sober, sober. So it's like you kind of like wane off of that dopamine hit of like somebody telling you good job for being sober. And then I started
Mhm.
feeling like, oh, this running thing is cool. I like the way it makes me feel. I like the struggle. Everything just kind of reminded me of like sobriety
Mhm.
in a way, like, cause it was just like the physical form of the sobriety for me, cause
Yeah.
it's
Push
tough.
yourself to limits that most
Yeah,
people
and
would call it.
yeah, you call
Maybe.
it, and then it just keeps getting easier,
Yeah.
like, slowly but surely being in different places and around different things just becomes easier, you know? So
Absolutely.
I just like, I'm like, I like this, you know, and I'm just gonna keep pushing. And then I started setting big goals. And then I was like, then I was in. Once I knew that like as a runner, you can kind of set a goal and then maybe get like a coach or something like that and
Yeah.
actually break down the process of how to get somewhere and try to do that process and then show up at the race and just see what happens, you know?
Yeah. I
It was
love
a vibe, you know, it was a vibe. So I feel like I don't know when it was, but I was just like, this is my thing. It was around as probably around the time I changed my name. I don't know what day that was, but when I changed my name to Tommie Runz, that was probably when I was all the way in there.
That's beautiful. What was your second truth again?
Second truth was I was just told the EAP. I told them how much I actually drank.
And the third truth was actually
Third truth was, like, saying it again to a person, like, in person, because that was tough too. Because like, I coulda just skated out of that and just started saying some other stuff about somebody else, you know? Well, you know, but I stuck with it. I mean, it seems simple, but it was just like, I had never done that before. I had never said that 3 times. Like, I told my friend, Don,
yeah,
because he knows and whatever, but that's safe, you know? He's not gonna judge me. He's like, "Alright,
right.
whatever, I know," you know? But telling 3 people that didn't know or know you that you are, like, in your mind, a loser,
Mm.
it's like it was freeing. It's like, "Okay, cool. We got that off our backs," you know? Now let's see where we can go from there.
And it's gone far. I wanna shift gears and kinda wind down talking more about what you've created because I was looking at your Instagram or stalking it a little bit, trying to do research for today, and I feel like for what I'm picking up from you is this sense of community and service, which makes sense in connection to, like, AA and, like, this understanding, like, to be of service to other people
Mm,
and not solo or isolate, like, how I approached the early parts of my sobriety, so I would love to learn from you, like, how the collective works in your mind and why none of this is, like, truly solo, because you host runs, from my understanding, and you invite people in on that journey, and you
mm,
talked about the parallels, which I've never actually made those explicit parallels between sobriety and running, but, like, I
mm.
can see it very clearly. But, yeah, talk to us about how community has supported or how your community building has supported your sobriety, maybe just people's journeys along the way.
Well, so yeah, when I hear like community builder, like you asked me earlier, like which one that you know, that one
Mhm.
doesn't. I mean, it resonates because like I mean, I can and have like done you know some runs. I hosted my first race, the Detroit Classic last year, and that was like in response to a brand deciding to not do one that they had done
Wow.
a couple years in a row. So I was like, the community was like liking that, so we're gonna do it, and we did it a little differently, and hopefully this year it'll be even better. But I think where for me, I build more of a community, a social or like national or like a global international like type of community
Yeah,
that has like an understanding of or a desire to like figure out like how to go to the next step or next level, whatever that is.
yeah,
And I've always been very open about my sobriety and about my journey, and then
mm,
also how I feel about myself or this run or what this means or how things. And I think people that resonates with people because there's so much right now. Like when I started doing content and stuff like that, it wasn't like in 2020 and 2021. There
mhm,
wasn't like a bunch of influencers like that. It wasn't influencer culture yet.
yeah,
So all my thing was I was just like telling my story, you know, and how it played into where I was at that time.
yeah,
So I build community in that sense of like I share my truth and then whoever decides that they like that and
right,
they like the authenticity of that, then you're with me, you know? And if I see you out at marathon, what's up? We talk or whatever. But when I start getting comments like DMs that somebody's saying like, you know, I'm 30 days sober or a year sober or 20
mhm,
years sober or
that's
whatever,
that's
or
yeah,
I'm not sober yet even and I'm just struggling, like what
mhm,
do I, you know? Those mean, like, so much to me, like, I was in a room at TrailCon, which is, like, between these 2 races that are in the trail space,
yeah,
um, and the thing was about content creation, and then somehow I went off on this tangent somehow about, like, sobriety and what this means, and, like, where
mhm,
I'm from, you don't see mountains like this, you know, and
mhm,
this could be life-changing for someone to be able to see, like, how far you can go away from where you were.
mm,
And then somebody came up to me, like, in the village, like, after we were like, I was walking through this, like, little town, and then he, like, pulled me off to the side and was like, "Bro, I'm 4 days sober only because I haven't had a drink since I've been here."
Mhm.
and I'm struggling, I'm da 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 da, like this whole big thing, and that like I almost cried in this village, like because it was just like that's what I'm here for. That's my community. My
Right.
community is people who desire to show up better, different, change, whatever, you know. But there's people who really like run club leaders and things like that who really like are like the backbone of all of this stuff because they're literally building communities and safe spaces for people to go to.
Yeah.
So I see myself as more of a person that has a community that's just kind of connected, and we all connect through this struggle that
Right.
life is, you know, because there's more people in this world that are unhappy and hurting than there are people that aren't. So
Yeah.
I resonate with the mildly unhappy at times and a little hurt, you know.
I mean, that's the human condition, I feel, right?
Yeah,
There's no joy without pain and vice versa. And like,
yeah.
I think the transparency that you have and that visibility, especially as a Black creator, a Black male
Mhm,
creator, is so important because so often men in general, and I hate to generalize, but like, forgive me here. I do feel that there's still a lot of work to be done around men's mental health and like
mhm,
talking through some of the struggles and the issues and not feeling like you have to carry that burden alone in
mhm,
isolation. And that's when we see all of these things kind of show up in ways that are less healthy. So going back to that moment with that man that you connected with and him disclosing that truth to you, like, "Hey,
mhm,
my 4th day just because I'm here," like, something compelled him to speak to you because you shared, right? And,
mhm,
like,
yeah,
that's the power of social like, people sometimes I feel diminish the value of, like, even your social presence online, and I'm like, Instagram helped get me sober because I didn't have
mm,
any positive influences in my life.
mm,
I didn't have anyone talking to me 4 years ago that I knew in person that I respected or trusted or that I saw myself in talking about the things that I was internally struggling with. So I just wanna commend you on that and, like, not that you need me to, but, like, that work is
mm. No, I
saving
appreciate it.
lives, truly saving lives.
Yeah,
So thank you for that. And I'm so excited that you're continuing to do that and spread awareness because if you don't see or hear and it's the irony is, like, when you mentioned going to your first meeting, it was in a room full of white people who maybe you didn't feel like you had much in common with, but then in
mhm,
hearing because you were
yeah,
receptive and open to listening to their story and didn't immediately just shut down and say, "Okay,
yeah,
well, these people could never resonate with my life." Like, you were ready. That's how you know that you were ready in that moment, but
mm,
so many
mm,
people would just tune out the noise and make excuses, like, immediately
yeah,
go into that, like, "Well, this is not
yeah,
me, so, like, I am not gonna connect to this." So, yeah, that's why I think it's so important, especially as a Black woman, to, like, talk about these stories because my life online looked perfect. It
yeah,
presented this way, and in
yeah,
reality, it was anything but that. And
yeah,
so it's like, yeah, when you have the courage to just say it, and it's not just self-serving for you, although it helped me stay accountable, but, like, when I was really ready to start talking about this publicly, that's when I was like, "Oh, crap," like, people that I knew in
mm,
my personal life, forget even people online, people that
mm,
were seeing it that I was so worried that would make fun of me or think that I was cringe, like, these are the same people who are like, "Actually, Nadine, like, how did you stop drinking?" So it's just
right,
you don't even know, like, it's not even, like, in the ether of the internet, like, people in your day to day are
yeah,
struggling, like, that you
yeah.
be aware of.
Yeah, and hats off to you though for congrats on your sobriety as well, and
Thank
then but also huge like congrats and more than congrats because like the fact that you said, hey, I'm gonna start a podcast and talk about this,
Mhm.
as often as possible
Right.
is like that extra step. Like I've been able to tell my story while doing something else and just kind of like weave it in there. And in fact, like I posted that 9 years sober on January 11th,
Mhm.
and, the post received good feedback. Most people know I'm sober. I mean, it says it in my bio, but
Yeah.
I talk about it when I feel emotional or when I feel something
Yeah.
bigger happening, and when I'm like, if I, not to flex, but I'm like in France or whatever, like in these
Mhm.
mountains, and I'm like looking around, like this is insanity, and then
Right.
like so those reflections always often or most of the time end up with me mentioning something about my sobriety, and like without that I wouldn't be like there's no chance I'd be here without it.
Right.
But hats off to people like you that are
I lead with
not
it. I'm
willing
like,
and
"Oh, we
you yeah but that's super super needed. And in fact, like when I did my first interview, Like, it was like I was invited on a live Instagram live with the Believe in the Run way back in 2020 or whatever it was, and he asked me a couple questions about, like, my life and stuff like that, and I got to, like, that point where, like, we were about to talk about maybe my sobriety, and
Mhm.
then I, like, said a little something, and I joked it off and then went into another direction, and then I got off of that call feeling like I had this opportunity, and I felt so bad
Mm,
and ashamed and sad and angry with myself that, like, I didn't share, like, my truth, and I didn't that doesn't mean I had to, like, go all the way through all the whole story, but I could've I shied away from telling the truth,
mm,
and I always say the people that in those rooms of sobriety, in those AA rooms, them telling their truth saved my life.
right.
So, there's not a chance that any after this point, I'm never gonna if somebody asks me about something about sobriety, there's not a chance that I'm not gonna say as much as I need to say at that moment. So,
Yeah.
the next time I got on the podcast, it was like a full podcast interview, and as soon as the question came, we were all the way there, and then from that moment, my thing is I'm gonna talk about the things that I resonate with, Imma talk about the things that matter to
Mm,
me,
mhm.
and if somebody can hear me talk about sobriety and don't even have an issue, but they take away something because
Right.
somebody tells you that they got sober after a life of drinking, to me, is the same thing as somebody saying that they scaled Mount Everest.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
there's ways I'm inspired by somebody that can scale Mount Everest or throw a football 80 yards.
It
So I'm gonna tell my story that I feel like I'm impressed by myself with at times. So hopefully there's ways that somebody can take this story and do something with it in their own lives. And kudos to you for like having conversations that do that often.
and kudos to you as well. Thank you for that, but also the fact that you and this is, like, the truth about getting sober and, like, doing the work actively because in that moment, you were like, "Dang, I had an opportunity, and I
Mm,
didn't go there," and you use that, though, as a launching point for you to not make that same
mhm,
mistake again or, like, use that as another opportunity to, like,
mm,
continue to be feel safe or secure in the moment of, like, "Okay, well, I'm gonna just gonna talk about this other part of my identity." I mean, like, when I was preparing questions, I had questions related to running. Tommy, we barely talked about running today.
Yeah, yeah, sorry. Yeah, you should have
We
told me you got actual questions. I would have shut up here and
no, this
there.
was great. No, this is, like, my preferred method, just, like, talking
Yeah.
because this is what's gonna connect to people. Like, you just seem like a cool dude, and this sounds so shallow, but it's the truth. Me going to Instagram, looking up sober talk and well, this is before
Hmm.
TikTok, like, sober
Yeah.
Instagram, like, the hashtags, whatever, like, sober curious. I had to find Black women that
Mm.
I thought were pretty. This is so shallow that I was like, "Oh, maybe they" and, like, that's what got me in the door. That's not why I
Yeah.
stayed sober or, like, how I got sober, but, like, just seeing examples, representation really does matter. The point of me mentioning that, Tommy, is, like, you talking about running is like, that is a part of your identity,
Mhm.
and that's gonna get people potentially feeling, like, connected, "Oh, who's this cool dude that runs?"
Mm.
And he's sober because you do talk about sobriety, it's in your
Yeah.
bio, so, like, that's another way that you're bringing people into the fold, so, like, I don't want to diminish that fact either, like,
No, I
you
appreciate that, yeah.
like, I just wanna make that clear, like, it's very clear that you're sober by looking at
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so, like
Yeah, I mean, at least that's what I say, you know?
'cause sometimes it's a
The funny
scare
part
tactic, but sometimes people like sober
yeah,
butterfly, like, I don't wanna talk about that, but it's like, I
yeah,
don't
right.
just talk about sobriety, like, I talk about other stuff, but, like so it's, like, polarizing either way, like, it's hard to, like, please
Yeah.
everyone, but, like, you're
I
being
mean, but you
authentic
can't
to
but the
yourself, you know?
yeah, yeah, if you yeah, you can't. Like, I think everybody I mean, we can't you should try to be kind to everybody.
Yeah,
Can't please everybody, but we all should have if you feel compelled, we all have some type of thing that if we share it could help people, and we can't always be worried about trying to figure out how to like make sober butterfly appeal to like something else. You know,
like,
like
cool
it's
girl,
not for
like,
that.
it's not for
Yeah, it's not for
everyone.
that.
It's not
You
for
know,
everyone,
and
and that's okay, because if
yeah,
I just wanna help, like,
yeah,
well, like
because that was the thing. Like I got off the podcast, and it sounds extreme, but it's like, yo, what if somebody was listening to that, and like maybe me saying something like could have saved their life
mm,
in some way, or someone else's life because they drink and they went outside and did something crazy. You know,
mhm,
to me, it's that dire. If somebody I don't want to keep dragging because we're trying to close this out here. But if you're listening to this and it's like somebody that's struggling or whatever, Or if you know of like an organization that like raises money to help people that are like this, because I raised money when I ran from LA to Vegas. I raised like $7,000, and like $7,000 is literally the average cost to have one person in rehab for 1 month. And I kept like trying to like tell people like, look, like this actually will essentially save someone's life.
Mm,
But then you have no idea like how far like saving that one person potentially from like and having this person maybe become sober and live a life of sobriety literally changes like their family's trajectory.
yes, you're
Like
thinking
if
literally legacies. Like,
if like a mom or a dad or somebody or a brother, like, because the end of the road for people that are stuck in addiction is not good if they don't stop, and that changes a family's trajectory forever as well. But for me, like me getting sober changed potentially everything. I'm 3 years older than my dad was when he died
wow,
now, and
that's beautiful.
and my kids, like, I'm here, I see them, they're with them, and we hang out, they know I'm sober, I talk about it, there's other people
Mhm,
that apparently listen to my story and maybe decide to do something, people tell me how many days they are sober at the moment,
mhm,
like, if somebody had donated $3 and that was the way that I got sober, that $3 saved my life,
right.
saved my family's everything, and maybe saved others, so it's that serious, and thank you for inviting me on the pod because in my opinion, after like posting and remembering what people feel about when I share these things,
Mhm,
I'm like, first thing you see is sober black runner. And
mhm,
I'm always black and I'm always running, but I don't talk about sobriety as much as I feel like I should. And I appreciate the opportunity to be on your podcast and kind of remind me of like what all this is for because I love running the marathons and all that stuff, but when I'm dying one day in like 40 years or whatever it is,
mhm.
I'm not gonna be like, man, that marathon time was great. Um, but I will hopefully be thinking about like the things that I shared that maybe helped other people.
That's so beautiful. That you have helped me even in this conversation, and I know you're helping people, and when people hear this episode and share, we don't know, like, that's the thing, like,
Yeah,
you just think that we are powerless in this cog, right? The system that we live in, and it's like, no, these are real people. Even when you mention raising money, $7,000, that just sounds like an arbitrary number.
yeah,
But when
yeah.
you make it real for people, like, actually, that's a seat in rehab that can save
Hmm.
someone's life for a month. Like, they can get help that can potentially not just change their life, but the entire trajectory of their family lineage. Like, people don't understand. And I think because this can go on and on. I could talk to you all day, Tommy, but I will say I grew up as a child of an alcoholic, and I think the irony is, like, I was so disgusted by, like,
Yeah, and
seeing
you do it
that,
anyway.
and then
You
that's
do it
what
anyway.
came, and, like, to
Yeah,
see someone that you love kill themselves slowly, like, people don't understand, like, the impact of that, man, like, they don't
yeah.
understand, like, the true ramifications of how that can impact not just the person who's suffering, but, like, everyone that loves that person who's suffering. And
Hmm.
then, like, literally, like, there I was following in the same
Doing it again.
footprints, right, so it's just like,
Yep.
you've broken cycles over here, and, like, that's what people don't realize, like, it's not just about you as the individual, it's the collective, and, like, we
Yeah.
all can help, like, not even, like, money, just, like, talking about it,
Let's
like,
talk. Share.
making it normal, like, it's not you, it's the substance, it's an insidious substance meant
Hmm.
to keep someone stuck, like,
Yeah.
and want more and more.
a hundred
Anyways, we could
percent.
be here all day.
A
I just
hundred
wanna wind
percent.
down with you, Tommy,
All
and
right.
play a quick rapid fire game. Really
Sure.
short. Alright, so let's play. What is one lesson running taught you about life?
You can do almost anything if you stick to it and work the plan.
I love that. One word to describe sobriety today.
Peaceful.
Ooh, I like that. Peaceful. A mantra you return to.
Oh man, I have so many. Right now, oh, the newest one that I found in the race, one that like I found it somewhere in the race. It was figure it out.
Ooh, figure it out. I
Hmm.
love that. Last rapid fire question for you, and feel free to pause and think for a second because this one is kind of deeper. Just, yeah, advice for someone early in sobriety who's trying to find, like, their outlet or their way.
I would say to someone that's trying to find an outlet or something like that feels like it's meaningful enough to replace all of what you used to do and keep you anchored is just try things. You know, just
Oh,
try new things, try the things that you thought you couldn't do because you were drinking or drugging, you know? That was me, like, who drinks a bunch and then goes to the gym. So I started going to the gym because I wasn't drinking. And then that led to doing like hit workouts. And then that led to being like, oh, I think I might be fit enough to run a half marathon. And then now I'm here, what, how many ever years later? 8 years later. Mm. So just try things, because if you do it in the sense of like curiosity, like, I wonder if I like this, I wonder what this is like, this new version of you that's just clamoring for like something to pour all of the good that you have into something, will find that thing and you'll be off to the races for sure.
that's beautiful. That's my favorite word, curious. Like, just get curious.
Mm. Yeah.
Listen to your inner voice. There's something nudging you for a reason. Anyone listening right now, you're listening for a reason. Like,
Hmm.
just get curious and don't over intellectualize
Yeah,
the process, because we often do that as well.
for sure.
Well, Tommy, thank you so much. I'm honored to have you on today, and I've learned so much from you. Where can folks connect with you? I'm going to plug everything in the show notes, but any last words?
No, I appreciate it. It would mean the world to me if you all like this episode, to share it on all the platforms or whatever. If you hear anything that like really interests you, follow me, hit me up, DM me. I'm at Tommie Runz, or at TOMMIE_. I'm just happy to be here.
Thank you for being here, Tommy. I appreciate you.
Yeah, for sure. Happy to be here.